So number one, we appreciate you guys coming. This is week number 12 of the Hyperconscious Mastermind. Tonight, we're going to talk about selling with integrity. So many people, and I used to be one of these people, are afraid of sales. And we're going to go into why they're afraid of sales, what they actually think sales is. A lot of it is just a misunderstanding at the end of the day. So we are going to dive right into it. As Alan said, we suggest you guys feel free to ask questions throughout. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. Amy, we cannot see everybody, so if you could just let us know and we'll hammer your question live. If you do not feel comfortable saying it, just type it in the chat box and we will do it that way.
Awesome.
Anything?
Ready to rock.
Here you go.
All right. So our primary objective is this. So between coaching, podcasting, interviewing people, especially coaching in particular, Kevin and I have realized that such a massive bottleneck is this aversion that we have to sales. There's a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. And there's this one quote that's absolute fire. And he basically says, "He who has this skill has the whole world with him. He who does not walks a lonely way." Now, he or she with that quote. Here's the thing. Whether you're trying to get your kid to go see a particular movie with you, or you're selling a $2,000 product, sales and persuasion is a critical skill set to have. It's a matter of influence. If you want to lead others to a great place, you have to have this thing called influence, this thing called sales. Okay, so our number one objective is to eliminate any aversion that you have to sales or selling, which is mostly subconscious from our childhood. We'll get into that. And to provide a simple 5-step framework that will fundamentally change the way you look at sales forever. So that's a hefty goal, and we're going to jump right into it. So first, we want to start off with what sales is not, okay? Sales is not persuading someone to do something that they don't want to do. Sales is not manipulating someone or taking advantage of someone. Sales is not dirty, shady, or sleazy. Now, this is what I've found. With my clients, we've done some deep inner work where I asked them some simple questions. When did you do something that you were unwilling to do because you were forced to do it? When did you feel like you were outside of your own control? When did you feel like someone else convinced you to do something that was not in your best interest? And then we dig deep into those memories. And what I realized, and there's this quote that you've heard me say probably, where it's like, if a cat sits on a hot stove and burns itself, it never sits on a hot stove again. It learned. But it also never sits on a cold one either. I feel like we overcorrect. And so the first thing we want to get clear here is...
Jump back real quick.
Yep.
Real quick.
Yep.
So what happens is the dirty, shady, or sleazy. I said, Alan, we got to put that in because I think a lot of people, salesmen and sleazy are synonymous. Just like for a lot of people, being wealthy means you're stuck up. All that means is you came across somebody or you were taken advantage of at some point. Maybe you bought something that you didn't need to buy, or somebody upsold you something that you didn't need. Now you're focusing on that. And that thing is actually holding you back because, like Alan said, any exchange is sales. If I want you to go to the movies with me, I have to figure out exactly, like if you're afraid of horror movies, that is an objection. You're not going to go with me. So I should probably pick a different movie. If you don't feel well, we probably aren't going to go to the movies. We're going to end up watching a movie at home, right? So persuasion is sales. And if you want to do anything positive, which you guys all do, then you have to figure out at a deeper level how to persuade people. And it's as long as you do it with integrity. That's the takeaway. Like if you've been hurt by sales, it's because somebody did it without integrity.
And I think what selling with integrity is finding the win-win, having someone else's best interest at heart. And we'll get into that. Basically, just going back to this slide here real quick. Kevin, looking sharp.
See that forearm?
Looking sharp up
My
there.
Lord.
With Mr. J. Lucky.
My Lord.
So what I've found is that imagine having a really, really terrible intimate relationship that was really, really painful, and then deciding, you know what, relationships aren't for me. Instead of drawing the correct conclusion, which is maybe that person wasn't for me. So that's what we do with sales. We had this horrible situation where we were sold some car or something that we didn't really want or didn't really need by someone who was sleazy or dirty or shady. And then we decided, okay, sales isn't for me. And that's what I've found. Whenever you've been manipulated in any regard, whether it's in your childhood or as an adult, the last thing you want to do is become someone who manipulates. The only difference between manipulation and positive influence is your intention. And so sales is not about persuading someone to do what they don't want to do. It's actually the opposite. It's communicating effectively to showcase how something is in alignment with their best interests. Okay. So here's a picture of Abraham Lincoln.
Young.
We chose this young
Abe Lincoln. No beard.
Young Abe Lincoln. Big fan. We are blaming the tool when we should be blaming the person who's using it. So here we know
young Jason Voorhees.
Jason. With this axe, you can build a home or a shelter and add value to people's lives, or you can kill people with it. It's not the tool that's the problem. It's the person yielding it. It's the intent behind it. So here's someone who built a home,
Jimbo,
with an axe. And yeah, we've since called him Jimbo. We don't actually know who this is. But that's the thing. We're blaming sales as the problem subconsciously, when in reality, it was just the people that hurt us. And by the way, if you look at the neuroscience of this, we tend to remember the memories of where we were hurt and manipulated rather than, I mean, we could all probably think right now of someone who convinced us to do something, persuaded us, influenced us, whatever verbiage you want to use, that was actually in our best interest. That was wonderful. One example I use is convincing Kevin to come to HPA, High Performance Academy, in 2018. That changed his life. If I didn't have the skills of influence to know Kevin, to know his goals, know his core values, and if I didn't have the credibility with him, I would never have been able to get him to go. As a matter of fact, one of our other dear friends that I really wanted to go wasn't convinced. Now, is that because it was outside of alignment with his core values, or was that because I didn't communicate effectively enough the value of actually going on that trip? So sales is not the problem. It's the negative experiences that we've had. That's the problem.
And I'm going to keep talking about money. If you have an aversion to money, just substitute sales for that. Because if you have an aversion to sales, you're not likely to learn it. You're definitely not likely to master it. And you're not likely to have a good relationship with it, which means you'll never want to do this. I was this way for a long time. I was a personal trainer. They told me basically to say like, hey, make sure that you tell this person they're going to die if they don't, do this. If they have plenty of money, blah, blah, blah. And for me, that's not selling with integrity, nor did I believe in the system really. So that held me back for a while.
That's another good point too. You need to believe in what you're selling so much that you think you're doing them a disservice by not persuading. I remember we were in the gym. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was so excited to go to High Performance Academy, Brendan Burchard's event, because we had gotten invited. And I was like adamant, like, Kevin, you've got to come with me. This is going to be incredible. And the people we met there, like, unbelievable. So you have to believe it first before you can transfer that enthusiasm to somebody else. So what sales really is number one, inspiring and empowering someone to take a new positive action. You can't change someone's life or improve someone's life until you can convince them, persuade them, inspire them, empower them to take a new action. Communicating effectively, a win-win scenario, which we're going to teach you how to do this. And then lastly, but not least, it's a transfer of enthusiasm. If you're not enthusiastic about helping someone else, and here's the other thing, helping is better than selling. They're the same thing though. If I sell you our coaching, that is helping you get closer to your dreams. And I genuinely believe that. As a matter of fact, sometimes I feel, there was someone recently that I really feel pulled to coach. I won't say her name, but I literally told Amy, I said, please tell her that I really want to get on a free call with her because I am convinced that I can change the trajectory of her life. If I'm not convinced of that, I'm not going to be able to sell her my coaching. And I know, and I'm very pulled to do that. So it's a transfer of enthusiasm. You got to be enthusiastic about your own product or service. If you're not, figure out why not and go improve the product or service. Number two is it's a matter of alignment. In other words, this person I'm thinking of right now, I am very convinced that her core values and dreams are very congruent with mine in advance because I know this person well and I know it's a good fit, especially when it comes to empowering young, ambitious women leaders. Like, that's so congruent for me. And helping her scale her impact online. Okay. So the other night, Amy and I wrote out a document of what I refer to as the sales aversion questions. And I've done this with some of my clients, and some of my clients are in here. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Kevin through each of these questions. There's 13 of them. We're going to do a rapid fire round. If you want these questions, and you can do these as well, there's a link, a Dropbox link, Amy, if you could hammer that in the chat. Everybody can click and download this link, and you'll be able to follow along with us. These are going to rewire. They're designed to try to rewire your aversion to sales, and you'll understand that in a second. So Kevin, I don't even think you've ever done or seen these.
No, I didn't want to.
So this is brand new. Kevin's never done this. So we're just going to hammer them one by one. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. First question. There's 13 of these, man. Let's rock. Okay. From 0 to 10, how much does the word sales resonate with your heart of hearts?
3.
3. Okay. From 0 to 10, how much does the word persuasion resonate with your heart of hearts?
3.5. Not
Oh,
much higher.
Low. From 0 to 10, how much does the word influence resonate with your heart of hearts?
7.
I like it. From 0 to 10, how much does the word inspire resonate with your heart of hearts?
9.
9. From 0 to 10, how much does the word empower resonate with your heart of hearts?
That's probably a 10.
10.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I like that one.
So here's the interesting thing, and I want you to notice this. Empower, that's what sales is. You're inspiring someone to take a new positive action. And everyone right now, think of something they bought. What's the best money you've ever spent? For me, it's Darren Hardy's Insane Productivity course. I spent $2,000 on this course like 4 years ago. Unbelievably valuable. Best money ever. It's still changing lives. I've shared those principles with you guys on the podcast. It changes my life. I actually am taking it again. I've probably taken it 3 or 4 times. But if he wasn't able to sell me, empower me to take a new positive action, I wouldn't have that value. Okay? So here we go. If I do not get over my fear and aversion of the skill and art of empowering others to take new positive action, aka sales, who are 5 people that I love who I'll never be able to help?
Bring the pain. Taryn, Alan, Amy, Tiff, and we'll say Mom and Mima too. So we'll do 6.
Mom and Memes.
Mom and Memes. Got to take care of Mom and Memes.
Shout out. If I do not get over my fear and aversion of the skill and art of empowering others to take new positive action, aka sales, and yes, these are redundant, but it's for a reason. What are 3 dreams, big or small, that I will never be able to accomplish?
I will not have the dream house that Taryn and I looked at. I will not have the charity that I want to have, and I will not be able to impact as many people as I want to be able to impact.
Here's another thing I just want to say real quick. If we could not influence all of you to be on this mastermind, we could not help you. That's another thing. Okay. If I do not get over my fear and aversion of the skill and art of empowering others to take new positive action, aka sales, who will suffer because of it?
Same. You, Amy, Tiff, Taryn, Mima, Mom.
Future children too.
Future children.
Where does my fear of sales actually come from?
I would say, and again, this is something I've really improved over the last year or so, but definitely the personal trainer thing, having a super negative association with sales, and then fear of rejection. I think everybody at some level fears rejection. That is definitely one of the things. And this is something that I've learned with working with Alan, but also having clients that I'm helping with their businesses. If you're not confident yourself, it's very hard for you to portray confidence in your business, especially if you're a solopreneur. If you're alone in your business and you're not confident, how much confidence are you really going to have to get on the phone with somebody and talk to them about your product or your service? That's why, in my opinion, so much of this starts with you. So much of this starts with you doing the inner work. And we're giving you the tactics today and the high level, like what you should be doing. But at the end of the day, if you're not confident in yourself, that's something I would say you have to start with.
One more thing that just my intuition feels compelled to say here is I have a client who she got 4 out of 4 internships that she interviewed with. It was either 3 out of 3 or 4 out of 4, I forget. But all we were doing, I don't care if you're going to an interview or you're interviewing someone else. You're either convincing someone to come and work with you or you're convincing them to hire you. So it's not just, we have this like very narrow view of sales of like, I have a product for X amount of money and I'm going to persuade you to come and buy it. It's not that. It's every second of every day. It's if you're either being sold or you're selling. And even if it's your idea, even if it's, you've heard me say manifestation in the purple elephant, for example, that idea I'm actually selling to you in a certain regard. I have to persuade you to embody and draw that conclusion so you can help manifest your dreams. Okay, why do I feel like selling is a bad thing?
The personal trainer thing, locking in that like you have to hurt somebody to get them to buy something.
Which we'll go deeper on soon, why that is. It's raising awareness, which is a lot of feedback, which amplifies pain, and pain is the necessity to take action. Okay, next is if I was world class at empowering others to take new positive action, aka sales, what are 3 positive changes that I could help my loved ones make? Who and what change? Be specific.
So I don't want Taryn to have to work. I want her to choose what she does for work. So that's one thing. I want to buy my mother and my grandmother a house, and I want to take care of us. I want us to be financially free. And I think that if I'm the bottleneck in terms of sales, I'm always going to feel like crap about myself. So that's that.
So the third one is Kevin wants to feel good.
Yeah, Kevin.
I love it. Okay. I think this is the last one. Nope. A couple more. What might someone never enjoy because they didn't purchase my products and services?
Podcast.
People are going to spend their money either way. This one was hard. Amy and I took a long time to word this one right. People are going to spend their money either way. What other non-beneficial items might they buy if they don't purchase your products and services?
I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to spend the money anyway. So it could be anything. A lot of it is probably for comfort. So maybe dinners or movies or shoes or, streaming services, Netflix, Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff. Either way, the money is probably going to get spent. And I think a lot of times it's easy to convince somebody to spend for comfort rather than spend for growth.
Yeah.
So I would say comfort.
Kevin and I talked about this earlier as well. If there are people out there that don't have pure intentions, that are selling to people and mastering this skill.
Which there are.
At
the end of the day, there are.
It's even more important for us who have pure intentions to be out there selling good things. I remember this one person who wanted me to help them scale and grow their business for a wine company. I have nothing against wine, but I personally don't want to increase the amount of alcohol that people consume. And so I said, that's outside of alignment, nothing against what you do, but no, thank you. So again, sales is about alignment just as much as it is about persuasion. Your goal is to effectively communicate value. All right, step one.
My goodness. Step one, know your outcomes. So if you're going into any form of sales, any form of persuasion, even a conversation, you have to know your outcomes. Not only yours, but you also have to know the person that you're going to be working with, talking to. You can call them a prospect. You can call them a potential client. You can call them a relationship. That depends, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're aiming for, how do you know how to shoot? Anything to add to that?
No, that's fire.
Strong work. All right. So Kevin Sells, Done For You Podcast Consulting. This is a good friend and a now client of mine, Mauricio. He has a podcast called The Better Life Podcast. He is a Forex trader. He does a lot of things. He's young, ambitious, my kind of dude. 23 years old, already works for himself, already has clients. Absolute fire. So him and I got on a free call the other day, and we talked through podcasting. He has a podcast. He wants to learn more. Let me just check this next slide here. Okay. So going into this, I have to know a little bit about him. I have to know, well, not even a little bit. I should know a lot about him. I should know, what does he value? Clearly, he values money because he's a Forex trader, okay? He values ambition because he is 23 years old and already has his own business. There's some background work that has to go on, and I think Alan and I are actually in a very good position because we research podcast guests all the time, right? So if somebody has an online footprint, you can research them very well. And again, at the end of this whole thing, your goal is to get them the result that they want. So the more information you know about them, the better you can get that result. You're not guessing. You're not trying to sell them something that they don't want or need.
Right. Imagine going into Best Buy, and I talked about this earlier with Kev. Imagine going into Best Buy and the salesman or saleswoman is just like, hey, try this computer, try this computer, try this computer. And you're sitting there like, I don't even need a computer. Like, that's what we do sometimes. Like, hey, do you need this? Do you need this? Instead of, how can I help you? I tell people every time I go on another show, it's like, reach out to myself, Kevin, or Amy. Between us three, we get back to everybody. Even if I can't help you, I guarantee you I know someone who can. And so remember that, like, yes, everyone's a potential prospect, but they're kind of not, because maybe they don't need your services. If I just did a marathon in the desert and you sell water, I need you 1,000,000 times more than if I live on a lake. You have to understand the needs and the values and the goals of your prospect in advance, which Kevin's going to go more into.
And the other thing too is like, okay, maybe Mauricio wants some form of my services. He might not want the highest end. He might not want the lowest end. That's going to depend too. Just because he doesn't want one doesn't mean he doesn't want a version of that. Again, it's all dependent on his goals. If we're in alignment, we have a far higher chance of working together. So anytime you're going into any sort of exchange, whether it's sales, influence, persuasion, whatever you want to call it, empowering, inspiration, there's a best case, a worst case, and a most probable case. When I was going into this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what are those for me? The best case is the platinum package, the highest done for you package I have. It's the most expensive, but it also is the most beneficial to my clients. I made it that way, and I literally added extra work for myself because I wanted to make it as valuable as humanly possible. That's the best case for me. The worst case is still a huge win. I add value on this 30-minute free call. I create an ally, somebody who might be on one of these masterminds. He might listen to the show, all of those things. And I master my craft. My goal is to be the best podcast coach in the world. So the more people I talk to, the more I learn about people, the better I can actually do that. And the more high quality coaching I can really put out there. And then the most probable case from my understanding when I went into this was it was probably going to be a lower tier weekly $99 a week consulting client. I didn't do as much work. I told Alan this. I didn't do as much background work as I should have because things were really busy. The call ended up getting pushed. It was a whole thing. So I actually could have known better about that, but I didn't. Moral of the story, do better than Kevin. All right. So just as important as it's to know my outcomes, I also need to know Mauricio's. Because if I'm going to sell him on something that I think is valuable to him, I have to know what he values. So from my perspective, the best case for him was learning a lot from me because he immediately said, my goal is to learn. Awesome. That's why we're here. Also to get some executable tactics because he's a podcaster. There's a lot of stuff out there on how to do this, how to do that, how to do this. But I wanted to share with him what I really think would work. And it was a free call. So it's already somewhat of a best case. I'm not trying to sell him on anything. My ultimate goal is to add as much value as humanly possible in a half hour and then see, where we go from there. In my perception, the worst case that he was thinking is it's just going to be a pitch fest with zero value. Like I'm going to hop on there and say, okay, man, hey, now that we're on the phone, let me talk to you about my services. I didn't even mention my services. I don't even mention them. That's not my job, right? So, and if he's ever had a negative association with sales, he's probably thinking worst case. You guys might be too. That's understandable.
Which becomes an advantage. When so many people are a pitch fest at an event, like our events got so much positive feedback because we didn't sell anything. Each speaker had one chance with one slide to mention something, but the rest of it was all value. And because some events are so salesy, it actually ended up being an extra value add.
Yeah.
And I think that with these consultation calls, these free calls, these building these relationships, which we'll get into, because there's a negative association, if you can get the call and then prove to them I remember I was coaching Doc Jen Fit. I jumped on a free call with her and her fiance because they just started a podcast called The Optimal Body. And I literally spent a full hour just literally dialing in their funnel, teaching them the numbers, how to scale, because they just started a podcast. We're 4 years in, and there's certainly things that she and he are better than me at, but with podcasting, I knew I could add massive value. I didn't ask for anything, nothing. Still to this moment, I haven't. And now I can text her anytime I want. We have a relationship. So, and I don't even know if that relationship will ever pay off. I do know I like her. I believe in her. I know that she likes and believes in me now. So just understand that because there's a negative aversion to sales, you can actually use that to your advantage by not being that way.
Fire. And I actually had a call with Doc Jen a couple weeks later. And same thing, like I just added value. I want to see them succeed.
Right.
She's a sweetheart and Dom's a great dude.
And then she came on our show.
Yeah.
As well, which that was cool too.
Big wins.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, Mauricio's most probable case was he was going to learn something valuable. That was probably his guess. Like, okay, we're going to hop on the phone. This kid has 400 podcasts under his belt. I'm sure he's going to be able to teach me something. And that's a great probable case. It's always my goal and my job to over deliver on that. Mm-hmm. So step 2 is know your codes. You heard Alan and I talk about the PMES system. Alex Hinkle and myself co-created that. Alan and Alex have gone deeper into that, and I'm there with them learning every step of the way, but they do their mastermind. So it's unbelievably important to know this because this is what drives somebody. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into it here. You've seen this, whether it's on Alan's speeches or one of the other masterminds we did, but you have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. These are the things that drive people. Okay. I am a very high P. Physical. I take action very quickly. It does not take much for me to take action. Mental. Alan was always way more mental than me, way more strategic, right? He had a higher level of intellect. I'm okay with saying that.
Appreciate it.
E is emotional. A lot of people make emotional decisions. Like if you do what you feel versus you do what you know you should, that's an emotional based decision. And then spiritual. This is the imagination. Whether it's, God or the universe or meditation or whatever it is, yoga, like the spiritual imagination and belief side of things.
I'm going to go a little deeper if you don't mind. So I also do have the next slide is a very deep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this slide is something Alex Hinkle and I co-created. Emilia and Bianca have a podcast called the Y Power Podcast. We were actually just on this weekend.
Yes, we were. Fire.
Which is awesome. Really, really well done. They use this framework with their listeners and they wanted to make sure that their listeners had a reference. So this gets really deep and in depth. The first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension is time. We won't get into all that, but here's my point. The simplest way I can explain this, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, is that we all have a code and the first letter matters most. So for example, my code is MPES. So mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. So if you come to me and start talking intellectual conversations and long-term strategic strategy, I'm immediately going to resonate. Whereas if you do that with other people who's an E first, you might turn them off and say, like, what's the deal?
Like me.
Yeah, right. And so one of the benefits of Kevin and I working together for so long is that we started to learn the value of each of these codes. And so the main point here is that usually it's M or E first, almost always. I would say 90% of the time it's M or E first. The codes that are the rarest are P first or S first. And that's because those are the tail ends of your experience. I'm not going to get into that. If you're E first, just understand your prospect cares more about the relationship than the results. You will not capture them until you capture their heart. An M is different. An M wants results above everything else, doesn't care nearly as much about the relationship, and you can't capture an M until you capture their mind. In other words, why am I working with you? If I don't believe that Kevin is ahead of me in podcasting and I'm his prospect and I'm an M, I won't work with him. M's want to work with people that are ahead of them. They're always questioning, why am I working with you? Why am I working with you? Okay, you need to be seen as the expert in that arena. Whereas E's, they care most about the relationship. So I always say this, you will not capture an E's attention until you capture their heart. You will not capture an M's attention until you capture their mind. We all have a code. And if you want to know more about this, reach out to myself, Kevin, Amy, or Alex Hinkle, who might actually even be on this call. Is Alex here, Amy? No? Okay.
No, not yet.
You can reach out to any of us and get this framework. And we can also teach you a little bit more about it. But anyways, this is the framework. And
yeah, throw a little trademark on there.
There you go, brother.
Little trademark. Right. Yeah. Okay. So doing my research, this is the goal. Figure out what is Mauricio's code. He is 23. He has his own company. He has his own podcast. He's very into numbers and making money. That's M. He's results driven. He cares far more about results than he does probably anything else. And I mean that in the best way. He has a high P, so MP. He's very good at taking action, right? He has the results to show it. Most people at 23 don't know what they want to do with their life, never mind having their own business. He has his own business. S, one of the things he says is God first in his profile. Okay, that's S, right? That's spiritual. And then E, the emotion, there's nowhere else for it to go. So we put it at the end. Now, it doesn't mean it's low. He could be high in all of these. Like Tony Robbins is probably a 9 or 10 in everything. He's mastered this. He's mastered influence, persuasion, sales, inspiration, and empowerment.
That's a good point too. If you are, we call it drive to 40. If you were a 10 in all 4 of them, you can bring authentically that version of you. So for example, I'm very fortunate to have a mentor who he wants me to keep him anonymous, but he was the CEO of several billion-dollar tech companies. And whenever I talk to him, there's no E, and that's okay. I'm bringing my M. I can only pitch and catch with him at the level that I've developed myself. So if I'm honest, and I mean this with love, there are certain people I know that don't have a well enough developed M to really hang with this person. So you can only meet someone where you've met yourself. So if you want to be the best at sales, persuasion, and influence and leadership, empowerment, you have to develop yourself in each of these facets so that you can authentically hang in each arena. So let's say someone was S first. I've dived pretty deep into S. I read a lot of Wayne Dyer. I understand the energetic quantum physics stuff. Like I can hang there. It's not my highest. My code is MPES, but I can still hang there. So what I'm trying to say is develop yourself so much that you can authentically show up with almost anybody without having to try to manipulate the circumstance. If that makes sense.
I know we're getting deep here, but just hang in.
Yep.
And we can always send you guys this recording too if you want to go over it. So I am EPMS. I am emotionally driven, love and connection driven. I've always been that way. That's just how I am. Again, I have a high P. My ability to take action is very, very high. If you tell me to do something, it'll be done the next day usually. My M is third. That's something I've brought way up between, learning about personal development, about sales, about everything. And then S, my belief has always been the lowest. But again, my goal is to get all of these to 10. So just because it's last doesn't mean it's lowest. It probably means it's the most underdeveloped, but it could be trending upwards. Okay. So let me go back into this a little bit. Let me just see what this is. Okay. So when I'm talking to somebody who is M first, okay, Mauricio is M first. He does not want me to jump on the call and say, yeah, if you work with me, you're going to feel better. That's not what he wants. He wants to know that he's going to get results. Now, since I am the expert in the podcasting field, when we jump on the call, I'm already going M. I'm already talking about results because I know that's what he wants. But that's what I want too. It's not my job as a coach to make you feel good. It's my job to get you results. It's my job to hold you accountable. It's my job to get you to be consistent and keep up with your discipline. So even though I have a completely different code than him, I'm able to match that because once we talk about podcasting, that's my sweet spot. That's where I'm most confident. I can very easily go M there. And when you throw that M there, then we're kind of the same. And we got along really, really well.
Can I give a quick example here?
We got 26
So
minutes.
if I was, we'll go quick. If Kevin's EPMS and I'm trying to hang with Kevin, I'm going to go with each letter real quick. If it's E, I would try to communicate effectively to Kevin that this thing that we're going to do is going to help him build relationships. So the Brendan Burchard event in 2018. Hey, Kev, we're going to go and you're finally going to feel like you belong with these types of people. These are all growth-minded people. They're all hyper-conscious. You're going to love it. You're going to build incredible relationships. I'm communicating to his E. P, you're going to learn these new tactics. Brendan Burchard has started a podcast. He's been speaking. Like, we're going to learn all these things to do. Now I can influence him. Whereas if I came in and started saying a lot of the S stuff when that was a less developed version of him, I might have turned him off. Okay, so again, the key is to understand the other person. The last thing I'll say before we go to the next slide is in How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about this, Dale Carnegie. He says, there's a reason why I don't bait the hook when I'm fishing with strawberries and cream. I love strawberries and cream, but the fish don't. You have to bait the hook, for lack of better phrasing, with what the other person cares about, not what you care about. The biggest mistake we make is a lack of empathy. Put yourself in their position. What do they care about? What are their fears? What are their desires? And we're going to go into all that.
Right on. All right, step number 3, know your prospect's top 2 needs. We have talked about the 6 basic human needs. Tony Robbins, they are certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, growth, and contribution. We talk about the top 2 when it comes to sales. But if you want a deeper dive into this, I would watch Tony Robbins' TED Talk because he knows way more about this than we do. That's where we got the framework. Amy, can you?
Yes. So Mo was asking, how did you deduce Mauricio's codes through your intelligence research, or do you use a list of questions to identify where they operate from?
So we do have a list. We have a questionnaire that we'll go through after. But you can, when you practice it long enough, you can kind of tell,
right?
Like you can kind of tell by the way somebody talks. You can kind of tell by looking at their profile. Like somebody who cares a lot about money is probably significance driven, which means they probably have a high M. There's a good chance that they have a high M. It's just, I mean, Alan and I have kind of been decoding people for the last year and a half with this. So I just think it comes with experience. And like, you can also a lot of times tell by the results people have too.
I will tell you, when you watch Tony Robbins' TED Talk, greatest TED Talk in the world from my perspective so far. I mean, I've watched hundreds and that one is amazing. Most people who are M first are significance driven, and that's why they tend to have egos. It is what it is. I've been guilty of that. People who are E first tend to be love and connection driven. Okay. People who are S first tend to be contribution driven. And so if I was talking to an S and that was their first code, I would try to communicate to them how this endeavor is going to help them contribute to more people's lives. We all have all 4 and we all have all 6. The key is which ones are driving them most, because we all have a different syntax.
Fire.
Cool.
So this is the questionnaire that I have. Alan has one separate. So the goal with this questionnaire is for me to get as much information about you as possible. I want to know about your goals, because if I know about your goals, I know how to help you. And the other thing too is, like, somebody could fill out this questionnaire and I could realize very quickly that I don't either want to work with them. They're not part of my ideal client avatar. Like, that's the other thing too. We're talking about how to get clients in sales, but there's also times where you might not want to work together.
Right.
Imagine if Alan sent out a questionnaire to that person who wanted to scale the wine business, right, and it said wine business. Alan wouldn't even probably done that follow-up call.
Right.
So, and don't get caught up on my questions. My questions are going to be different than yours. But for instance, if you were, well, what's a good example? If you were a personal trainer, you're going to ask different questions than me. You're going to ask, like, what is your goal weight? Like, what is your dream physique? Do you have any underlying health conditions, right? Where I'm asking, are you on YouTube? Is this audio only? Do you have guests? Are you always in person? You know, are you going to be doing Zoom, blah, blah, blah. And I also ask about the equipment, all of that stuff. So this is just going to give you a lot more information on the person you're talking to, so you can figure out, again, what is the best match for us? That is always the goal. How can I add as much value as humanly possible?
There's 2 reasons. One is what Kevin just said. How can I add as much value as possible? The better I know this person, the more I can add value based on their goals and dreams and lifestyle. The second reason, though, and I want to make this clear, is to amplify pain. What do I mean by that? You're not trying to tell them what they're doing wrong. You're asking the right question so that they're starting to realize, oh, I do need help. That's the one thing that my questionnaire does. And Amy will send, if you Instagram DM me or Kevin, Kevin will send his questionnaire and I'll send mine, and you can customize it to whatever you're doing in the world. But the reason is also to, like, what's an example of a question? One of my questions is how much monthly income has your business generated in the last 6 months? One of the reasons is to understand their cash flow, of course, because if I'm going to help you scale your business, I need to know what money's coming in. Number two is to realize, like, if you're not really growing, I want you to become aware of it by answering the question authentically to you. So it increases the necessity to work with someone. Like in fitness coaching, how often do you weigh yourself? You're going to sit there and go, oh, shoot, only like once a month. It's like, well, okay, maybe you need help. Maybe you need accountability, right? So the questionnaire has two main objectives. One is to add more value to them on the call. Number two is to amplify their pain by their authentic truth. It's just feedback. Because these questions, we don't ask ourselves, these questions every day. We should, but we don't. And that's, yeah.
And the other thing too is, in theory, you should know way more than the person that you're talking to. So they should very quickly say, like, oh, I've never thought about being on YouTube. Like, that's way too much work doing the audio editing, the video editing, blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, I know more about that because I've done it for 400 and something episodes. So it's my goal. If that's what you want, I can get you there. Now, for the first time, you can believe in that now because now you have the ability to connect with somebody who can help you. So that's the other thing too. All right, let's get out of this one. All right. So this is what you do before you get on a free call. You want to figure out your research, right? Who is this person? He's a podcaster. He's a Forex trader. He's young. He's ambitious. Alan went on his show, so there's borrowed credibility there. He now knows me, and he knows how next level Alan is. So he assumes that I'm next level at some, in some way, shape, or form, hopefully. He wants to be a motivational speaker. Guess what? You want to follow in the path that Alan and I are following it, okay? We had this podcast long before I was a speaker. So this podcast has not only led to speeches, but it's led to clients and relationships and all of that stuff. He wants to do more coaching. Okay, I do that too. Okay, so now I'm figuring out, like, okay, what you want to do is very similar to what I'm doing. We're very much in alignment right now. And he wants to make good money. Same thing I want.
One of the questions you asked him was, how do you think we got on this call?
Yeah, this is, if there's people in here right now, we can only see 4 of you, but there's people in here right now that I've been on coaching calls with. Like, this is the question I ask. How are we even talking right now? The only reason, why are you guys here today? Because you heard the podcast, you interviewed Alan or myself, we met somewhere. That's the only reason, but all of that is through the podcast, right? So that's what I said to him, like, dude, why are we even talking? You wouldn't be talking to me if I didn't have 400 episodes. It'll get to that point with you as well.
One more thing I want to say as well, and Evan Carmichael is one of the most successful YouTubers in the personal development space. Kevin and I are not trying to sell him YouTube coaching.
No.
Have a high awareness of where you're the expert, and honestly know when you're not. And this is something that I've found when I'm coaching people, and I mean this with love, but like, you're going after clients that are way ahead of you. And it doesn't necessarily make sense. Evan Carmichael would never, nor should he, hire us to help him with YouTube.
Right.
His YouTube is 10 times better than ours. We might hire him.
More than 10.
Yeah, probably 10 million times. We would hire him, but if it's personal training or fitness, maybe Evan's a client, right? So you have to understand there's 3 beliefs that your prospect must have. Number 1, they must believe you're sharp as a tack. Number 2, they must believe that you have their best interest at heart, regardless of yourself. That's a hard one, okay? Number 3, they must believe you're the expert in what they want. So like, Kevin's not gonna hire me as a fitness coach because he knows what I know, right? You gotta go to people where you're the expert in that arena. And that's why it's self-awareness. Know where you're great, know where you're not. You're never gonna hire me to help fix your car. I don't know how to. Dumb idea. If you want to scale your business, I've got you.
Also, this is the other thing too. If somebody asks you to help them with something that you don't know about, just tell them. Like, I've had clients who say, like, hey, I'm looking to run some Facebook ads. Sorry, I don't know. That's not my jam.
Right.
That's not my jam. Now, I can tell you what I know. I don't want any extra money. I don't want to run the campaign. That's just not my jam. If you want to talk about podcasting and interviewing, I'd love to help. But there's certain things that I know I'm out of my league and I would never feel comfortable coaching somebody on. That's just, and I think that's part of being, like, having integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my goal at the end of the day is not just to make money. Of course I need to make money to keep the business going, but I want to help this person so badly that it is like sickening. Like, that's the reason I want to do it. I could have stayed at my old job if I wanted to keep making more money, but I want to help people. And like Alan said, it has to be something that you love, that you really feel like you're doing the person a disservice by not helping them. Like, this podcast has changed my life. Of course I'm passionate about it, right? So going into this call, from my perception, Mauricio's biggest bottleneck / pain was time investment. And this is most of my clients. They want a high level show, but they do not want to put in the time. Understandable. They don't want to do the video editing, nor do they know how. They don't want to do the audio editing. They don't know how. They don't know how to make teaser clips. I spent 3 years making teaser clips. The first one took me 16 hours. Like, I know why you don't want to do it, right? So that part for me is also knowing my ideal client. There's somebody who's busy, but they want a high level show and they want it done for them. And then another thing, uncertainty interviewing others. This is something he said to me on the call. Yeah, I'm not sure what questions to ask people. I interviewed Alan. That was the first one I did. I feel like it went really well, but I didn't know where to find the questions. I said, Mauricio, we have 400 episodes. That's 400 opportunities to learn. We have a website, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of that stuff, right? So that's just a teachable moment.
Now remember, he's talking to an M when he's saying that.
Yes.
You don't say that to an E, because they'll think you're bragging and you'll turn them off. Okay? Credibility building with M's, relationship building with E's. Just want to reiterate. Go ahead.
All right. Step 4, connect, build a relationship, and effectively communicate. This is the build a relationship part, in my opinion, is probably the most important thing. Again, I've probably emailed or spoken with you or seen you face to face, everybody in this. Like, there's a reason you guys are here, because we've probably connected. You've seen Alan and I speak. You've listened to a show. We've coached you, whatever it is. We're so big when it comes to building a relationship. Now, people say, why do you guys do free coaching calls? Aren't you wasting your time? No. People want the connection and they want the money before they actually invest the time and add the value. It's very hard to sell somebody on something until they know, like, and trust you. Unless you're a Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi. It's a lot harder when you're not that person. So focus on building a relationship, focus on investing in somebody, focus on adding value. Mark Metry told us this, and this has changed the game so much for me, because this is something I do every day. Scale the unscalable. Like, are you really that busy where you can't cut out a half hour for a free call to add value? And again, know this. The goal of this call is to add value. It's not to sell. That's not what it's about. It's to add value. If this person never comes back to you, the goal should be to have them in a better place. Okay? That should be the ultimate goal.
This is why referral business is so important. If any of my clients were to get a message and say, hey, what do you think of Alan's coaching? Like, they would hopefully refer me by saying he changed my life so much. That's value. Selling is communicating the value. And sometimes you have to feed the value, give the value long before you get paid for it. You're trying to grow a plant, but you have to start it as an acorn before it'll grow into a mighty oak. Again, that's where branding and marketing comes in. And that's a whole nother training. But like Tony Robbins, everyone knows who that is, but that took 40 years to get to his level of brand where he's that recognized, right? A good analogy might be, if Matthew McConaughey walks into a party and says, hey, who wants to come hang out? Everybody's going to say yes. Why? Because they know Matthew McConaughey already. They already know his perceived value because of all his movies and things like that. The work is bigger than you. This is why having books build credibility. This is why having TED Talks builds credibility. Whatever your brand is, this is another unconscious thing. We have almost 400 episodes of the podcast. There's a subconscious knowing that we're not just talking, we're doing. We know this stuff. Imagine sculpting for 10,000 hours and then saying, nah, I'm not a sculptor. Kevin is selling podcasting. He's not selling how to drive well or how to cook well.
I do drive well. I do not cook well.
Right.
I do not cook well.
And that's the thing. We have something behind us. So the body of work behind you, the brand behind you, is another subconscious belief they must have.
And this is the other thing too. And this is why I say building a community is so important, building a relationship. At no point on this call with Mauricio did I say anything about my services. I talked about other clients. I talked about what I do, but I did not say at any point, hey, you should pay me for your services. When we got to the end of the call, he said, so I heard you say that you work with clients. What do I have to do to work with you? Now, what does that mean?
Strong work.
That means I did a really good job of adding value. That's the only point. I'm not on here to sell you. I'm not a good salesman. Like, I'm not good at saying, like, okay, let's jump on the phone and I'm going to get you on this. Like, I'm going to sell you this. I'm not good at that. I'm good at adding value. And my goal is to add enough value to this person where they say, you know what? I learned so much. It's clear that he has the results that I want. He's a good dude, and he didn't try to sell me on anything. Like, I really feel like this is a congruent relationship. And that's another way to get clients from podcasts. I've had people reach out and we just start with each other. They've listened to me for hundreds of episodes. I built a relationship with them. They're part of the community, right? I didn't have to say anything witty. I didn't have to, have a nice line. They just know us. And that works really well for us.
Fire.
What else do we
Strong
have?
work, man. So one thing I want to say here real quick, we only have 11 minutes, so I'll go very fast on this. There's primary, passive, and active value. So if you've ever heard a Jay-Z song, he's added value to your life. Like if we saw Jay-Z on the street, it would be, holy crap, Jay-Z, what's up? What's the difference between Jay-Z and someone you don't know? He's already added value passively in your life ahead of time. Same with the Matthew McConaughey thing. So there's primary, passive, and active value, okay? Your goal in life, in my opinion, if you want to be fulfilled, is to grow and increase your own value as much as possible and then maximize these three. Primary value is the fire in your heart, why you do what you do, your mission. The passive value, an example is the podcast. Right now, at this moment, as we speak, there's someone getting value from the Hyperconscious podcast.
Yes.
Amy messaged us earlier saying she heard the Dean rep and was like, oh my God, that was amazing. Okay, so that's passive value. Active value is being in the room. That's what we're doing right now. That requires you to be physically there and physically present. If you maximize your primary, passive, and active value, primary is your own personal development, your own self-work, your own fire in your own heart. Passive is the body of work, the books, the podcasts, whatever it is, movies, you name it. And then the primary, or active rather, is right now, in this moment, in real time. Okay. And by the way, we're taking this active value and we're going to put it as passive value on the internet. So it keep interwebs.
The interwebs.
Right? In the interwebs.
Hang on for this one. Hang on for the triangle.
Okay, so I drew this on the whiteboard earlier. Apparently it's a maroon board, not maroon.
Yeah.
Beige. Okay, so remember how I said sales was not about persuading someone to do something they don't want to do? It's about alignment. It's actually about the law of attraction, really. We want to find the win-win. We go in knowing the win-win in advance that we're trying to get to, and then we pivot along the way. Imagine Kevin and Mauricio. Okay, Kevin is EPMS. Mauricio is MPSE, and he's significance and growth driven. We know that from the questionnaire. Okay, Kevin's only job is to effectively communicate value with both questions and with his expertise. Then Mauricio asked him about his services. So your goal is not to pursue. Your goal is to communicate effectively so that you attract. Okay, and I think that's the biggest misunderstanding. Power versus force. You're not trying to force this person to work with you. No, none of that. You're trying to communicate effectively how valuable you are, which, by the way, is predicated on you actually being valuable, right? But then finding the right fit, which we're going to get into. Consider to drive to 5. What is the mutual win-win of this person's goals and my goals? How do we find that win-win? What is their core values? What is their code? How do I communicate effectively to them? By asking the right questions and by bringing my expertise. And then they'll ask you, how do I work with you? Okay? Trust that process. It's hard at first, but you get really good at it. Kevin's gotten far better.
Heavy triangle.
So this is, when it comes to finding the right fit, okay, this is Kevin's 3 types of services. He has a tier structure. He's got platinum, gold, and silver. You go ahead.
Yeah. So again, my goal when I got on the call with Mauricio was silver. I thought, okay, this is probably going to be a $99 a week client. He probably just wants to talk, helps with interview, all that stuff. But the reason I have these different tiers is because not everybody wants everything done for them. Not everybody wants a weekly call where we talk about, oh, this interview went well, this interview didn't go well, these are the questions I forgot, blah, blah, blah. Right? So for me, my goal is not to sell you a platinum package. My goal is to sell you what you need. If you don't need any of this, I don't want to work with you. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way of, that just means we're not meant to be working together. I've had people come to me and I just say like, look, I don't think this is a fit. Like, okay, your friend told you should start a podcast. I mean, you're probably not all in like I am. I want somebody who's committed, right? So that's another reason I have the different tier structures. But my goal is not to push you towards platinum, to push you towards gold, to push you towards silver. My goal is for you to fall where you want. And then we can always reevaluate. If you start at platinum, you don't like it, we can go down. If you start at silver, we can go up.
Kevin and I do dual coaching, and we literally talked about this right before this. Like, we do dual coaching. I don't care who gets the sale. I want whoever it makes the most sense to. Like, I remember back when Kevin didn't want to do fitness coaching and I did. If you wanted the fitness side of things, you came to me. Even one of my clients recently who I love coaching might actually be better off with Kevin. I'm literally encouraging that. Kevin was like, hey, I don't know. Like, do you think this makes more sense? If it makes more sense for you to work with Kevin, that's what I want for you. I don't want this needy, like, please stay with me nonsense. Abundance. Think abundance, be abundance, increase your own value.
Somebody in this, I don't know if she's here or not, but somebody reached out to me and said, Kevin, I want you to coach me on fitness. I said, I'm not the guy for you. And I sent him to somebody I knew, and now they work together. Again, it's not my goal to sell you. It's my goal to serve you. I'm not the fitness guy I used to be.
That was fire.
You like that?
That was fire. I do. Okay.
Teaser
Step
quick.
5, last step. We've got 6 minutes. We're going to crank it. Okay. Finding the right fit and mitigating objections. This is a big one. Okay. Mitigating objections and increasing desire. We all have a decision-making paradigm. You've heard me say that. That's basically on one end of this scale, you've got desire. On the other end, you've got fear. Okay. What you must do is increase the desire by getting the other person to envision what they believe they want in their consciousness with your effective communication based on the truth. Selling with integrity is about the truth. Okay. And then you want to mitigate their fears. In other words, this might be too much money. I'm afraid to make a bad decision. Do I have enough testimonials? Like, is this right fit for me? Am I afraid to succeed? Am I afraid to start a podcast? Am I afraid to do YouTube? Okay, you have to understand the other person very, very well, their fears and desires. Okay, do you want to go into the things with Mauricio?
Yeah, so Mauricio, from my perspective, his biggest fears were me selling the whole time, the call not being valuable. We talked about that, right? Not learning anything and it being too expensive. And then the desire that I gave to him was you're going to get more clients. Like, if that's what you want, podcasts get you more clients as long as you do it the right way. You're going to have far more time to do the stuff that you really enjoy. You're not going to be spending all night audio editing and video editing. You'll definitely get a sense of significance because I'm doing all the work for you. There's something subconscious about somebody taking care of everything for you that makes you feel like a VIP. If you're significance driven, that's going to help. And then you're going to be able to learn and network. We've had 100 people on, some of the most successful people in the world. I'll introduce you to them. I cannot guarantee they'll come on the show, but I will introduce you to them. And that's the least I can do.
Right. Okay. Here, we're going to mitigate objections in advance. Okay. At the tail end of the sales process. And by the way, when it comes to building a relationship, I agree with what Kevin said. Building the relationship is the most important. Every step prior to that step, that fourth step, is helping you more effectively build a relationship. How do you build a relationship if you don't understand the other person really well? You don't know their core values. You don't know their code. You don't know what drives them. Okay. So now that you've built the relationship, this is the tail end. This is the part that a lot of people drop the ball. Okay. You need to mitigate objections in advance so if you take fear, imagine fear, there's like a lot of weight on that one. You want to lighten the load. This can be with discounts. This can be with special offers. This can be a lot of different things. So Kevin, Mauricio's fear was sell the whole time, not being valuable, won't learn anything, too expensive. What Kevin did is he convinced him or communicated to him, I should say, that he didn't try to sell him. He added massive value to him. He learned a ton, and that podcast is going to make you money. If Mauricio really cares about making more money and chasing his passions, all Kevin has to do is authentically communicate that Kevin's services will help him do that, because he won't have to spend all his time on the back office podcast stuff. He can spend his time podcasting and doing Forex stuff in his genius zone. Okay. Next, increasing desire. Imagine if you mitigate fear and increase desire, you tip the scale, someone finally makes a decision. Okay. Go ahead.
So I want him to get more clients. That's what he wants. He wants more clients. Okay. This is the desire for you. Your podcast will bring you more clients. You want more time for the things that you're passionate about to build your business. You'll have more time to do that because I'm going to be taking care of that. Again, right now, a lot of people are trading time for something. I can take that off your plate, Mauricio. Sense of significance. You're going to be able to get more impact in less time because you're going to be widening your net of impact, and you're actually going to be lessening your time. And I can give you access to my relationship capital that's going to help you learn and network. Again, David Meltzer, Mark Metry, Evan Carmichael, Dean Graziosi, Doc Jen Fit, like all of these people we know now, and I will be glad to introduce you to them.
Fire. Okay, so the last thing, we did it.
My Lord.
I want to tell a very, very quick story. Super
you
fast.
You got 2 minutes.
Okay. There was a friend of ours, mutual friend of Kevin and I's, who claimed that he asked me to come and do something, and he claimed in his message that he already knows it's congruent for me. And I remember thinking to myself, that's kind of arrogant. Like, how does he know that? When he told me what it was to go and help young children and inspire them to live a better life. And I immediately was in. I was like, you're right. It was congruent. Like, he didn't have to sell me anything. All he had to do is communicate that we're going to go help kids, and I'm in. My girlfriend, Emilia, if it's going to help her grow and it's going to help her contribute, she's in. If it's not, she's probably not in. You have to understand what drives another human being if you want to convince them, persuade them, influence them, empower them. That is the takeaway. It's not about you. Selling has nothing to do with you. It has to do with your products and services being of value, of service to someone else. Communicate with what they care about, and you will always win in this arena.
Fire. So what I would say, and obviously we have our thing here. If any of you guys want to hop on a free 30-minute call with Alan and myself, again, we're going to do what we just did. We're not going to sell you on anything. That's not our goal. But what I would say to you is if you are service-based or you're trying to get clients, I would say do free 30-minute calls. Couple of reasons. You're going to master your craft. There's a reason Alan and I know so much about the listeners because we've talked to them for years, right? I know a lot of you guys by name. I know where you live. I know if you're single. I know what you've gone through. That's because we're trying to build a community.
A little creepy.
It is a little creepy. I know your social security numbers. I know everything. But that is what I would suggest. That is an absolute game changer. Not only because you'll get the social security numbers of people, not only because you'll get clients, but you guys will build your level of mastery. Everybody thinks they know something until they start talking to somebody else. When you start talking to somebody else, you'll have to look your fears in the face and say like, oh, I've never really talked to anybody about this website thing that I do or the personal training thing. Like it's time for me to level up. And that's one of the things that has changed, for me more than anything. I love hopping on the phone now. And again, at the end of the day, whether or not we end up working together, I don't care because if you listen to the show, we have a chance to impact you, right? That's at the end of the day, that's the goal. The goal is impact. Whether we work, there's people in this lobby right now who I might end up working with. I might not. That's okay. I'm glad I have the opportunity to know you guys and you guys are with us and we don't have fans. We have family. Much love.
This was awesome. Thank you so much. Again, our only goal is to change the trajectory of your life on those calls. Please reach out on Instagram or any social media if you want to set that up. And if there are any questions, we're not going to be able to do it live, but please reach out and ask us those questions. And if there's any resources that we mentioned on this PowerPoint that you want access to, you can message Amy, myself, or Kevin, and one of us will get back to you within the next few days.
I'll hammer you. If you DM me, I'll hammer you a video message if we left anything out.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming.
Much love.
And we love you.
Now we have 4 episodes to record.
Oh, wow. 3 more.
3 episodes.
4. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.